No,
Because
I haven't
obviously,
talked about Falmouth at all, really. So,
okay, yeah, let's talk about
yeah.
that then. Hello, and welcome to Runnah, running on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and beyond. I'm Juliana, your host. And this week we have a really special guest. We have the race director for the Boston Marathon, and is it also race director for the what's your title for the Falmouth Road Race, Dave? Is it race
Same.
director as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Race director for the Falmouth Road Race, Dave McGillivray. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it. Yeah.
I'm super excited to have you here because like we were talking about in the little pre-show ballpark kind of like talk, you haven't really talked about the Falmouth Road Race too often.
No, I mean, everyone asks me how I got started running. People ask me about the Boston
Hmm.
Marathon. People ask me
Yeah.
about my run across the United States, and it goes
Hmm.
on and on and on, but not specifically about any particular event other than Boston. So happy to chat about Falmouth. So for me, growing up in the 70s and 80s, that running crowd, at the
Yeah.
time, Bill Rogers, Joni Benoit Samuelsons, the Frank Shorters, that's the era I was competitive, not at their level, but that's when, I
Personally
was,
competitive.
yeah, right. Personally, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and was running every road race I could find. And one of the best ones at the time, and still is, was the Falmouth Road Race. And
Yeah.
so I started making the trek down to Falmouth to participate in the race, like
Hmm.
the rest of those of us who belonged either to the Greater Boston Track Club or whatever club they belonged to. But it was
Hmm.
the end of the summer. It was, you're in peak shape, and everyone focused on that race to have their best performance of the year, so it seemed. And then, not to, sort of go outside the athletic world, but then the
Yeah, go
social
for it.
was a big part of it too. It's just
Yeah.
the partying afterwards, and it was a big
Yeah.
social thing. So everyone looked forward to that too. Run hard and then party hard. So
Yeah.
so yeah, and then obviously a good friend of mine from the Elliott Lounge in Boston was Tommy Leonard, and
Hmm.
Tommy, as the story goes, is sort of was the brain. It was his idea of putting on a race from Captain Kidd's Woods Hole to
Hmm.
Brothers Four in Falmouth, and thus was born the Falmouth Road Race. And then he made some personal calls to get people there, like the Billies and the Franks, and that just gave it instant credibility and notoriety. And because those folks were there, Olympians, winners of Boston Marathon, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
everybody felt, so all the stars lined up. It was like the best field assembled of any, less than marathon road race in America, combined with Cape Cod in the summer,
Yep.
combined with such an aesthetically appealing course. Right at the end of the summer again, it all made sense. So it just took off.
Yeah.
So I participated obviously a lot in the Falmouth Road Race in the early years.
Yeah, it sounds like it was one of your favorite races to run. It's like year after year after year, which I know for a lot of people now, that's still the case. And the partying you're talking about, and you know very well that this is still the case too. Like people come and they run the 7 miles and then they are out at a barbecue. They are out not as
Yeah,
much on the roofs of the Falmouth Heights and the Falmouth like casino wharf kind of area. That's you look at those old pictures and people are like really just picnics out on like the actual
yeah,
rooftops, which is a wild
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
But it
So
it definitely is something that it's a summer staple, especially if you live in the town of Falmouth or on the Cape or anywhere in the vicinity. This is a staple of the running community and the larger community every year. So you,
yeah.
you started off by running it. And what led you to taking on the Falmouth Road Race? Was the Falmouth Road Race part of your race director repertoire before Boston, after Boston? Where does this kind of fall in line
No,
with
it
that?
was it was definitely after Boston. I had no
Mhm.
intentions of ever directing the Falmouth Road Race. It's just that they were making the board at Falmouth was making a change in the leadership of the race, and
Mhm.
so they just sent out an RFP to people saying, "Hey, if you want to, apply,
Yeah.
um, then the position is available." So I did.
Fair.
And went down and was interviewed, and long story short, got tapped with the job, and brought my colleagues with me, and anytime, first of all, the Shermans and the Carrolls, who were the original
Yeah.
directors of the race. I mean, I give them all the credit in the world. They along with Tommy created this. The
Mhm.
toughest part of any road race is the first few years and creating it.
Mhm.
For me, I'm just a caretaker now. I'm just, I just, it's was here
You hold the
before,
legacy.
and it'll be here when I'm gone. I'm just taking care of it for a few years. Me and my company, DMSE Sports.
Mhm.
Um, the last thing I ever wanted to do was to come in and like change everything or bring all my own people. And no, we're going to be patient with this. We're going to come in. We're going to continue doing a lot of it the way it's been done, because that's tradition and that's the way people understand it. But as we move along and we earn our own credibility with the folks who've been involved in it for years and years and years, then maybe we can make some adjustments and make some enhancements, make some improvements along the way, and just be patient with it. And that's what we've done. And we always
Yeah.
included every single person who was involved in it originally. They were invited back to continue to be involved in it. So it was a combination of us bringing our people to the event, and then and continuing with the people who were already there. And so it's been
Mhm.
it's been a great sort of symbiotic relationship with those who have been there and those who are new to it. And here we are now, what, 13, 14 years later, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
uh, it's going along extremely well. So we're very proud of what we've been able to bring, but also what we've been able to share. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely can stand behind that, and it definitely is really important. I will say, as someone who I've lived down in Falmouth for about like 7, 8 years now, it
Yeah.
still retains that community event feel, even though, like, clearly, as you know, this is a global scale event with the caliber of athletes that are coming in who are at the pro level, and just the number of people. There's like 80,000 spectators that come through. That's
Yeah.
I will quote Megan Faulkner on that one. She told me that the
Okay.
other day. So
I didn't
that
I
number
didn't
should
count
be
them, but
accurate.
that's okay. I
For
didn't
any of
count.
the curious listeners out there who are, like, questioning my accuracy, accurate as of the other day.
That's where it came from. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, but it definitely is something that, even if it's a bigger event, it feels like it's a hometown event, and it is, like, super important to obviously include all of the people who were originally there. Do you For you, what was the biggest challenge of transitioning to being race director and race organization as well too? Because your organization kind of took on a lot of the responsibilities
Yeah.
that kind of I will say, scaled up the event, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think in a lot of cases, like anything in life, there's no right or wrong way of
Yeah,
doing something. There's just a preferred way,
for
or,
sure.
it has your own stamp to it. This is how we do it, type
Mhm.
thing. So it was really a matter of first learning the event, understanding the objectives,
Mhm.
relationships with people involved in the race and with the city officials and all of that. So we didn't do a whole lot of changing of things right away. Like I said, we just wanted to earn our own stripes, and then started chipping away on maybe just the look of it,
Yeah.
and the infrastructure. And then, again, the race has grown since, and sponsorship has been pretty aggressive since too. So
Yeah,
there's
I would
more
say.
revenue to be able to spend on the event. Um, and what it does too, philanthropically, in terms of the race maybe
Mhm.
net profit, but then the board takes that profit and gives it out to worthwhile, nonprofits in the town. And
Mhm.
then the charity runner component, where there are over, I don't know how many charities involved, over
There's a lot.
100 charities are involved, and they recruit their own runners and they raise money, and collectively it's over $7 million. I mean, when you start
That's a lot of
adding up
money.
those numbers, it's not just a road race anymore.
No.
It definitely defines the town. It's the biggest event the town puts on all
Yeah,
year
by far.
long. So
By
I'm
a lot.
told. The toughest part about any of these real successful events is the whole concept of, leaving people who want to participate, on the curb. In other words, you can't, there's no more room at the end type scenario.
Yeah.
And you work really hard to build up the reputation of the event, to promote it, to market it.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden there's way more people at the door trying to get in that you can accommodate. And there's that delicate balance between quality and quantity. And not quantity for the sake of being greedy, wanting more people, which means more money.
Yeah.
No, we want more people because more people want to do it. We want as many people to experience it as we can fit. But again, being a point to point, starting in a very small area,
It's very tiny.
it's very, very similar to the Boston Marathon, where again, the way it grew over the years, Boston's a point to point, starts in a small town of Hopkinton, and Falmouth is the same thing, right? And so we have the same challenge in Boston that we have in Falmouth, and that is there's significantly more demand than there is opportunity to be able to participate. And how does one who's never run it, how do they get the opportunity to run it at least once? Is it a rush to the keyboard? Is it a lottery? Is it qualifying standards? Is it a fundraising minimum by the charity partners? And so every race is different as to how they accept official participants in the race. And sometimes runners sometimes scratch their head trying to figure out how they get to the race, because maybe they can't raise the minimum. They haven't been able to qualify. They didn't make the lottery. What do I do now? And that's hard on a lot of us involved, because inevitably we get the phone calls or the emails saying, "Hey, I applied. I didn't get in. Is there any way I can get in?" And I'm like, what am I going to do? So that's, sometimes we're a victim of our own success with these events, and so that's my
biggest,
downside to having such a successful event is not being able to accommodate everybody who wants to participate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with the Boston Marathon, that's a topic that comes up quite a lot. Not quite as prolific with the Falmouth Road Race, just because it is a little bit of a smaller race and it's not the oldest marathon in the country slash world. Whichever one it is, I apologize. How do you deal with that as the person who is kind of getting a lot of slack, I would say, for being not really exclusive, but like you have to set standards. And like I work on the back end of the Cape Cod Marathon, so I know that like you only have a permit for so many people. And it comes down to a lot of the times like town bylaws, like police, like permits that they're able to give you, town permits that they're able to give you. So a lot of the times it's not you as a human being, that most 99.99999% of the time it's something that's like completely outside of your own control for the most part. And it's something that's being dictated by an outside organization. That's not the Boston Marathon. That's not the Falmouth Road Race. It's being dictated by like the town or the like other organizations that are working within the town, just trying to keep people safe. How do you deal with responding to people who like say, for the Boston Marathon or for the Falmouth Road Race, because there's around 11,000-ish participants every year, or the last couple of years for the Falmouth Road Race. And I'm assuming like at least 10, 20, 30 times as many people putting their name in the lottery. How do you explain it to people when they are kind of just a little bit peeved that they can't get into
I think
the race?
They know going in that their chances of getting accepted, are, not minimal, but it's not
Yeah.
100% guaranteed. And
Yeah.
so they already know it. And
Yeah. It doesn't
listen,
stop them from complaining though.
it comes down to two things for us. And I keep trying to preach this, whether people either understand it or not, or
Yeah.
accept it or not. That's up to them. But it's all about time and space. Every
Yeah.
event is about time and space. How much time have you been given to conduct
Hmm.
the event, from closing the roads to reopening the roads?
Hmm.
And then how much space do you have to work with?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
if you have more time, then you can get away with less space because you can spread it out more. If you
Hmm.
have less time but more space, then the idea is to, rush it through, but you got
Yeah.
more, you can accommodate more. For Boston, I keep telling people, I don't have either of those, time
I,
or space.
I can,
Um,
I can, I can only imagine, as someone who grew up pretty close to Hopkinton, and
yeah,
also I've run Boston, obviously, like it's tight. It's real
it's
tight.
tight. Yeah. So we can't shut the roads down any earlier than a certain time, and we
Hmm.
gotta get them back open. I mean,
Yeah.
people got, especially with Boston, it's on a Monday, and even
Yeah.
though,
People are at work.
well, it's a
Some of
holiday,
them. Some people are.
it's a soft holiday. It's not like Christmas or New Year's or something, right?
No.
So there are a lot of people who live along the coast that need to get in and out during
Oh
the day.
yeah.
Shut it down, they're inconvenienced, right? Well,
Yeah. And they get a little bit peeved sometimes, even if they know the
it's
race
all
is coming, they still get kind
yeah,
of peeved.
it's all residential communities that we're running through. It's not like, you know, only 2.4 miles of the Boston Marathon is in Boston. The rest
Yeah.
are in 7 other cities and towns.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Falmouth. I mean, there's not a lot of space out in Woods Hole
No,
to do
not at
business.
all.
And there's not the ball field where we finished. It can only handle so many people. And
Yeah.
then they want to, they obviously, it's a summer Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So people got to get to, the ships, heading out to Martha's Vineyard or
Mm-hmm.
Nantucket, whatever. So the steamship authority, we need to work closely with them. And
Yep.
then just businesses and stuff,
Oh, for
they
sure.
get back to business. So anyways, we have to be sensitive to all of that. So in as much as a lot of it that we do is all about the runner, we
Mm-hmm.
have sort of about a lot of other entities and agencies also. And it's a
Yeah.
delicate, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who have never been even like just like a volunteer at a race or never been seeing the back end of a race kind of get in the zone of like the runners are the only thing that matters. And in the short term, like you want the runners to feel like they're the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
You want them to walk away from the race feeling like, wow, they really like centered this race around me. But the reality of it is you have so many other cogs moving to get the whole clock ticking correctly.
Yeah.
So you can't feel like a runner centered race if you don't have the other cogs in the clock moving correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's something that I know, having been on the organizing side and having been like a baby race runner, didn't really realize. And then I saw the backside and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, this makes sense why all these things happen.
Yeah.
So definitely is something for a lot of people to consider and maybe just kind of chill a little bit out a little bit more. It's not as big of a deal. Try again next year if you can,
Yeah.
especially since Falmouth is a lottery for the most part. So it's not like a time-based thing and you don't have to be in peak shape or anything to put your name into the lottery for Falmouth. So
No, and again, I can appreciate the fact that people just don't know everything that goes into it. Why
yeah,
would if they're not
yeah,
doing it? I don't know
it's not their job.
anything that goes into building a skyscraper,
Yep,
whatever.
no idea.
Like one day it's not there, and a couple of months later, there
Boom.
it is. How'd that happen? Well, it's a lot of planning, a lot of work by a lot of people. Bang.
Yeah,
Same thing with putting on a race. So
yeah,
yeah, Falmouth is a very challenging event because of, like I said, minimal time, minimal space, a lot of runners, all of that. And so you add it all, transportation, I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of moving parts to this one.
Yeah.
So
Now, were you part of the decision to make it a lottery system, or was that something that existed
I
before
think
you were
that
there?
existed before. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There's pros and cons to it. Um,
Yeah.
you want to be fair, and I don't love the concept of the rush to the keyboard thing. Like all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
Monday morning at 7 o'clock. Okay, opening registration, and all of a sudden,
Like,
everything's getting
mhm.
come.
The website
No,
crashes like 20 times before it
yeah.
even 1 minute has passed. Yeah.
So that doesn't make any sense, right? So
Yeah.
lottery seems to at least I with a lottery you can't be accused of playing favoritism. You let this one in and
Yeah.
knock out and all that stuff. It's a lottery. I don't know.
It's random
Yeah,
chance, That's what science says. It's a probability game right here.
yeah,
That's all
yeah,
that's going on. Most people I talk to feel the lottery is pretty fair for the most
yeah.
part. Like you
Oh,
get
I
that
guess.
one person here or there who's a little bit jaded, but for the most part, people
Yeah,
find that it's very
yeah.
fair.
I think
Uh,
so.
yeah. Now, with being part of the Falmouth Road Race every year, I'm sure you have some parts that are your favorite that you look forward to every time you get to come down to Falmouth,
Yeah,
which I'm sure isn't quite as often as you like. That's kind of the general sentiment for anyone who doesn't live in Falmouth. They want to come down here more because it is gorgeous. It's the standard. But is there anything specifically every year that you are just so revved up to do as part of the Falmouth Road Race weekend?
get it over with.
Get it?
Get
Do
it
you
over.
make sure everyone gets to the finish line and safely and no one
No,
dies of heat stroke,
a
please
lot
think.
of I have a lot of personal sort of experiences. For example, with Falmouth, when I was running in it,
Uh-huh.
um, it's the first time I ever met the Hoyts, Rick and Dick Hoyt.
Oh,
And
okay.
I
Nice.
was I was running along, and all of a sudden, this guy pulls up next to me, and he's pushing a wheelchair, and I'm like, "What the heck is this?" And
This
I
little
didn't say
newfangled
anything,
device.
didn't say anything to me. I could tell the person in the chair maybe had some disability. So
Hmm.
I at first I was inspired by what I
Yeah.
was seeing, but then my competitive nature kicked in, and I said, "Okay, I'm inspired, but I'm not letting this guy beat me." Pushing a chair,
Uh,
kid in it, and so we were literally racing each other the whole way,
did you
and
win or did they win?
I beat him by, but not a lot, right?
Yeah, okay.
I don't like to even use the word beat him. I
Yeah.
crossed the finish line
Hmm.
before them, but only by a minute or so, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I turned to the father, Dick, and I said, "Excuse me, my name's Dave. I just like, what's this all about? What's going on?" I'd
Yeah.
never seen that. And he explained this, the whole situation. So then I said to him, "Have you ever done a triathlon?" And he said, "No." And I said, "You think you would like to? I have one up in my hometown in Medford and love to have you do it." He
Yeah.
said, "Only if Rick can do it with me." And I said, "How the heck are you going to do that?"
Yeah.
"I don't know, but you're going to help me figure it out."
Oh,
So,
wow.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
sure. Why not?
we did. So he came to the race with his inflatable dinghy boat, and then
Hmm.
with his bike with the seat on it and the whole bit, and he did the Bay State Triathlon, which was a mile swim, 40-mile bike,
Wow.
and 2-mile run.
That's impressive.
So that was my first introduction to them, and then
Hmm.
on to getting them accepted into the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii, and then I started becoming their manager, and
Oh,
then
you
I
managed them for a little bit? I didn't realize that.
10 years as their manager agent, yeah,
Nice.
and then I helped them plan and then do their run bike across
Uh-huh.
the country because
Uh-huh.
they wanted to do what I had done running across the country. So we, I helped manage all of that for them. Anyways, so the Hoyts, my whole involvement with the Hoyts started at Falmouth. And
That's
then
awesome.
every year I started this thing where I run my age on my birthday.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this. This
So
is
when I
a,
was 12, I ran 12 and 13, 13, 14, 14. So one year I decided the Falmouth Road Race wasn't exactly on my birthday. It was like 2 days before or whatever. It was within a couple of days.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to do my birthday run on the Falmouth Road Race course.
Okay.
So I think at the time it was around, I don't know, 38 miles or 40 miles, somewhere close to that. So I started at the finish line, ran to Woods Hole, turned around, ran back, then ran back to Woods Hole, then ran back, and then did it right so that I'd run back to Woods Hole and get back to Woods Hole right before the start of the race.
Okay.
And then jump in the race and finish up the final amount running in the race. So the last 7 miles of whatever total miles I had to run that year based on my age, I did running in the Falmouth Road Race. So that was pretty cool.
I'll tell you something true, Dave. I always am training for a marathon in the fall when the Falmouth Road Race comes around, and I use it as a long run, like the topper on a long run. So I'll run to the starting line. I usually do somewhere between like 10 and 15 miles beforehand. And it's my favorite long run of the entire year because I get like cheered on through the finish. It's the best way to end. People are like, that's crazy. I'm like, no, this is the best long run of the entire year because I have a full crowd cheering me the last 7 miles of my long run.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I did. So that was memorable. And then one year I was doing this triathlon around New England where I was swimming a mile, biking 80 and running 20 every single day for 35 days around New England. And part of that was I came down to the Cape. I was going to swim from Woods Hole to Martha's Vineyard. The way the crow flies, I think it was around 4 miles, but the current will make you swim a lot further than 4 miles because you're being pushed all over the place.
Yeah.
So I jumped in the water, and this is in like March. I jumped in the water and I was about a mile in, and the water was like 50 degrees. And I was like, this isn't going to work. And I started going under, and some of the guys on the boat jumped in and rescued me and pulled me into the boat and turned the heat on and brought me to Martha's Vineyard, and the ambulance took me to the hospital and warmed me up and all this other stuff. Anyways, I didn't get the swim done, but I went on to, that same day I ran 20 miles around Martha's Vineyard and then came back and then finished up my triathlon event 3, 4, 5 days later, finishing inside Gillette Stadium. But I always said I didn't do the swim. So I came back one year, the day before the Falmouth Road Race.
Oh, okay.
I had the boat take me to Martha's Vineyard. And I said, I'm going to swim from the Vineyard to Falmouth Heights and then run the Falmouth Road Race the next day. So I jumped in the water. I started on East Chop, I think. Jumped in the water, started swimming. And I remember looking up to the boat that was guiding me, and I said, Ron, I said, that buoy just went right by me. Did it get dislodged? So he said, no, that wasn't the buoy going by you. That was you going by the buoy. He says, you're heading towards Woods Hole. You're not heading towards Falmouth. I said, well, the current here is so strong. This is crazy. What are we going to do? He says, you got to get back in the boat and we got to start all over again. I got back in the boat, went further up the Vineyard to West Chop, so that as the current pushed me sideways, it made me come closer. Yeah, just like that. Yeah. So I get to about maybe a quarter mile out from Falmouth Heights Beach, and I look, and it's a crowd of people like you wouldn't believe. The best friends in the world, the Bill Rogers of the world, or the Craig Virgins, or whoever, Alberto Salazar, they're all waiting on the Falmouth Heights Beach for me to come out of the water. And I'm swimming and I'm swimming and I'm swimming and I'm swimming and I'm not going anywhere. And they're waiting and they're waiting. I'm like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I'm swimming as hard as I can and I can't. I'm not, like I'm on a treadmill. I'm not moving an inch. So I eventually got a little break. Then I cut through and I was able to finish. And then they're all there. Hey, nice job, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then the next morning I get up and ran the Falmouth Road Race. So that was pretty cool too. I'll always remember that too. So a
Yeah.
lot of fun times down there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about your experiences, Dave, because I'm fresh off running my first ultra marathon, and like the people who are outside of like the endurance running and endurance sports scene are like, "Wow, you're insane." I'm like, I feel much less insane now. I feel
Yeah. Yeah.
much
No, I
more
mean,
sane.
it's not a function of being insane. It's more a function of like having a
Yeah.
goal, wanting to challenge yourself,
Yeah.
doing the work, earning the right,
Hmm.
and just accomplishing it and feeling good about yourself that you were able to do something that was relatively
Definitely.
daunting. Um,
Sure.
they say that it's almost like a terms of endearment. They're saying you're
Yeah.
insane. They're indirectly complimenting you, saying that, wow, that's pretty extraordinary that you're able to do something like that.
Oh, yeah. No, I
Yeah,
definitely, I mean, genuinely, I've never felt more sane in my entire life. Like, I feel like I've hit a good stride with this whole running thing, with running the super
yeah,
long distances.
yeah, yeah.
So I, I,
Cool.
I stand behind it 100%. You do whatever, like, quote unquote, insane slash exceptional thing that you would like to be doing, and
Yeah,
you go out there and smash it and kill it. I think that's
that's it.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's wonderful. But I guess
good.
we'll wrap up, Dave, because we
Yeah,
said we're going to do 45 minutes. We'll do one
yeah,
quick, like, little fun segment at the end, if you'll humor me
yeah.
for just a
Okay.
minute. We're going to do what shoe do you choose to use, which means
Yeah.
you can just tell me either your favorite shoe of all time, the shoe that you're running in currently, or any shoe that lives rent free in your brain forever and ever and ever. And you can say multiple shoes. There's not really any like specific
Yeah.
rules, but any shoe that pops into your head that
Well,
is a
what's interesting is, I grew up probably wearing Nikes the most.
uh-huh.
Then I got a job with Saucony Running Shoes as their national director of promotions
Oh,
for
wow.
4 years.
Nice.
So of course I was wearing Saucony exclusively at the time.
Yeah.
When I started my business and directing races, well, the TD Beach to Beacon, the shoe sponsor there is Nike.
Okay.
The race we just put on in Omaha, Nebraska, the shoe footwear sponsor is Brooks.
Yep.
The Falmouth Road Race used to be the New Balance Falmouth
Yep.
Road Race,
Now we're
and that
A6.
was the A6
Mhm.
Falmouth Road Race. You see where I'm going with this is that I got a closet full of
So like 5 million shoes that you could pull from.
brand, every single model that you'd ever want to hear about. And interestingly, when I ran across the country, I had a sponsor, and then they dropped out about 2 weeks before I was going to take off.
Oh
I'm like,
no.
then this company came along called Specs,
Okay.
and footwear company out of Seoul, Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we want to sponsor you. And I said,
Okay.
well, I've never worn your shoes before. And they said, well, either you do or you don't. I said, well, send me some
Yeah.
shoes. I only have a couple of weeks now to figure this out. They weren't the greatest shoes in the world at the time. And I was like, oh man, this isn't going to work. If I wear their shoes and I don't make it, it's bad for me and it's bad for them.
Yeah,
So
for
I said,
sure.
hey, how about this? How about we say, I'm testing your shoes against all these other major brands. And then,
Oh.
some days I'm wearing them and some days I'm not. So they went for
Okay.
it. So they sponsored it, and I wore them sometimes, but not all the time. But the beauty about it is that I had 8 pair of shoes with me in the
Okay.
motorhome. And as I ran every day, I ran 10-mile splits. In other words, I ran 10, took a break, ran 10, took a break, ran 10, took a break, for
Okay.
45, 50 miles every single day, months. But every time I get into the motorhome, I switch the shoes. I put on a
That's a smart
different
idea.
model. And when I stepped out, I felt like refreshed. Like
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I hadn't run at all prior to this split.
Hmm.
And it saved me by
Oh
wearing
yeah, for sure.
the different splits. So, but now, as far as the shoes I wear now, is a friend of mine works for Hoka.
Okay.
And he said, hey, I want to send you a pair of shoes. He sends me the shoes. And I opened them up and I went, I'm not wearing these. They look
Like
like,
the Bondi or something. The big one
yeah,
that's like a big boat.
it looks like I'm not wearing these. And first looking at them, they looked like they weighed 100 pounds, but they didn't, of course.
No, they don't. It's a
So
Hoka.
I didn't wear them. So then, like 3 weeks later, he calls me. He says, "How do you like the shoes?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, great." And then I
They're
said,
really awesome.
"Awesome." I hadn't even put them on yet. I said, "I got to try these out." I put them on. I went, "Whoa, these are pretty cool." Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. So then, for the last 5 years, that's what I've been wearing, the Hoka shoes,
Okay.
and I I love them. I think it has. I mean, I haven't missed a day of running in almost 4.5 years, of three and a
Yeah.
half more. I did the 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents on one pair of Hoka shoes. So
Really?
that made
That's
me
impressive.
was able to do that. And so right now they seem to work for me, and I'm sure other shoes would work for me too. But
Yeah.
since they
It
seem to
sounds
work,
like it.
I'm sticking with them.
Yeah. If it works, especially if it took you across the 7 marathons, did you
Yeah,
bring 7 different pairs of Hokas or just one pair of Hokas for
I
that?
actually brought 3 pair,
Okay.
and I just wore the one because I don't know, they seem to work, and I didn't want to mess around, so I just wore the one pair.
Do you know what model shoe you were in by any chance? Or was it just the one that yeah, I'm
I,
asking you questions that you can't answer.
oh, that's fine, but I think then it was the Bondies. Now I wear the Skyward X.
Oh, okay, yeah, which is pretty much like the Bondi with a more improved foam and a plate.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
EVA in the back and the heel. Yeah,
yep, yep. You got the partial kind of like finger
yeah,
looking plate that's underneath. That's a fun time. That's a fun
that's
shoe to
it.
be in. It's nice and
Yeah,
bouncy and squishy.
yeah,
I
that's what
love
it
it.
is. Yeah.
But okay, awesome. Good answer, Dave. That was a very interesting answer too. So I stand behind it. Very good. So
Okay.
okay. Okay, awesome. So that will wrap up our interview for
All right.
today.
Great.
Anything you want to plug? Do you want to just like let people know where they can find you if they have any questions about anything that you had?
Well, I have a foundation now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the McGillivray Finish Strong Foundation. So we're doing a lot of
Yeah.
neat programs for kids and whatnot. So that's, DaveMcGillivrayFoundation.org. And then I do a lot of motivational speaking. And so I have my own website, DaveMcGillivray.com. And
Okay.
then the business is DMSE. So DMSEsports.com if you want to find out what races we're managing, we're directing. We're putting on a race in Miami this weekend for
Oh, fun.
Lululemon. So I'm heading down there on Friday. So we were in Omaha, Nebraska 2 weeks ago, putting on a race for Warren Buffett. We're all over the place.
Wow.
You can find out about us just logging on, Google the name, Google my name, and you'll find it all.
Yeah. I'll put the links down, all the links that you mentioned a second ago. I'll put them in the description of the episode. So that way if people have any
That's
questions
awesome.
or they want to check out where you guys are going to be next, they can just
Yeah,
do so right below where they are either listening or watching. But
there you
this has
go.
been fantastic, Dave. Thanks for being
Awesome.
on.
All right, my pleasure. All right,
Yeah.
you take care. See you on the
Yeah.
roads.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Runnah. This podcast is edited, hosted, and produced by me, Juliana Coughlin. Brought to you in part by the Falmouth Running Club and the Falmouth Community TV station. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on Instagram and on TikTok at RunnahPod, and you can send us an email at runnahpod@gmail.com. And our original theme music was brought to you by the one and the only wonderful Jeffrey Hutton. And keep up the great work. I'm proud of you.